Phil Harris's Ford Ranger collision. A closer look at how New Zealand's most popular new generation body-over-frame vehicle responds in a frontal impact. For reference, it takes 100 milliseconds to blink. At 5 seconds before impact, the vehicle is travelling at open road speed, 100 kilometres per hour. Data is recording driving behaviour. At 2 seconds before impact, data reads a change in driving behaviour. 1 second before impact, some electronic systems become active. For example, the automatic emergency braking. The speed drops rapidly, approximately 15 kilometres per hour in 0.2 seconds, from 100 kilometres an hour to 75 kilometres per hour. The active safety controls of the vehicle begin to monitor the data more closely. Note, there is no activation of any safety controls at this time. At 0 seconds, the moment of impact, or time zero, is when the vehicle's parameters are met to activate the safety devices. Passive safety systems activate. The vehicle slows dramatically and both vehicles make contact. At 0.01 seconds after impact, the seatbelt pretensioners deploy. At 0.014 seconds after impact, the frontal airbags deploy. At 0.015 seconds after impact, the secondary retractors deploy. At 0.03 seconds after impact, the fuel cut-off system shuts off the fuel supply. At 0.035 seconds after impact, as the vehicle starts to rotate after the initial impact, the side airbags deploy. At the moment of impact, when Phil's Ranger first contacts the other vehicle, or at time zero, the supplementary restraint system SRS impact sensors detect a dramatic change in the rate of deceleration and deploy the appropriate airbag inflator modules and seat belt pretensioners. The fuel supply system also shuts down. All these actions and deployments take place within the space of 35 milliseconds after time zero. At time zero, and in virtually the same instant as SRS deployment, the vehicle's frontal structure collapses dramatically. The left front corner of both the full frame chassis and the upper body take the full force of the impact. The left front crush zone portions of the chassis front frame section collapse completely. The main front chassis crossmember and right front frame end and crush zone areas also sustain substantial direct and indirect buckling and distortion. Welds that connect the front frame section to the main chassis frame fracture. Unabsorbed collision energy progresses rearwards and collapses, or concertinas, the left-hand main chassis frame side members behind the crush zone portions. Still more unabsorbed collision energy buckles the chassis mainframe in the kick-up area, behind the front wheel. The right-hand chassis rail behind the main crossmember and kick-up area also bends and buckles. No visual damage to the full frame is evident rearward of the transmission crossmember, apart from buckling of the spare wheel carrier from the inertia weight of the spare wheel. The left front wheel is also directly impacted, causing, in addition to the collapsing chassis frame, the left front steering and suspension components to be driven backwards and into the lower A-pillar and front floor area of the upper body. The front compartment and the area of the radiator support and inner guard structure on the upper body are also heavily impacted. Driving back and collapsing the bulkhead and firewall. As the bulkhead collapses backwards, the upper A-pillar and screen pillar also buckle and distort dramatically. The entire A-pillar is driven backwards, compressing and buckling the left front door, which is then forced back into the B-pillar. At the cabin floor level, collision energy travels through the floor pan into the centre tunnel area and along the lower side aperture, severely buckling the floor and centre tunnel, inner and outer sills and lower B-pillar structures. Welded seams separate and split open. As the sill and B-pillar structures continue to move backwards, the rear door and frame buckle. Finally, the left rear inner and outer sill and C-pillar structures collapse dramatically, splitting many of the spot welds on the multi-layered mating flanges in this area. The entire cab or upper unibody is displaced rearwards and skews across the right-hand side. As a consequence, the cab to chassis attachment mounting points, the brackets, bolts and insulators, have also been bent. Substantial collapse of the steering column now touching the dash pad and instrument fascia. Both front and rear seat frames and squabs are also heavily damaged. The driver's side curtain airbag hasn't deployed. The transmission and transfer cases are extensively fractured and split open. The engine sump and bell housing are also badly damaged. The drive shaft and mountings are displaced. The steering rack assembly is also cracked and split open in multiple places. The front engine mounting bolts have sheared off.